Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Are you hearing me clearly? Yes, give me a thumbs up if you are hearing clearly. We will begin shortly. We're going to begin shortly. Use the link that you use to join us. You can share it with your friends and others who you know are studying for this exam. So please go ahead and share the links. We are on Zoom and YouTube this evening. Good evening. Good evening again, everyone. We will begin shortly. Persons are joining us here on Zoom, and we are also streaming live in YouTube. And we will begin shortly. We're just waiting for a few extra minutes for some of your colleagues to join us so that once we get started, everyone can benefit. Okay, good evening again. Good evening. Hello once again. Good evening. Welcome to another session, or Write Like a Boss, as you are preparing for your CSEC English A exams scheduled for Monday, 5th of May. Let me see a thumbs up. How many of you believe you're ready? You know that you can go in there and you're going to get your grade 1. You're confident. Let's see some thumbs up in some emojis. Send those in YouTube, send them here. You feel as if you can go in there and you're going to give it your best and you're going to be able to get your grade 1. You know you are passing CSEC English A. Let me see the confidence coming out of our Caribbean region. Okay? I'm seeing some. How many of you have been with us over the past few days from last week into this week, and you believe you've benefited from the sessions? Let me know. Show me the thumbs up. You believe you've been benefiting from the sessions. You've learned something, some valuable lessons that can assist you in your exams. That's good. Excellent. All right, so we're getting ready to begin. And this evening, we are going to, and thank you, just a few bits of information. And I know every day we've been asking persons to edit their names and to use your full name, the name of your school, followed by your full name. We've been asking that. Tonight is our last session. So I'm letting you know that as well. This is our final session in our Write Like a Boss series. So I'm also asking you that when we go through this, ask your questions. And at the end of the session, we will just have a brief discussion about how you can further prepare yourselves for your exams and what it is you can do over the weekend in preparation for your exam on Monday. Okay? Do we have any other teachers? Can I just see if you're here as a teacher? Can you raise your hand for us, for me? Do we have any teachers who would not mind me making you a co-host? I'm looking for a teacher. Right? Okay, we are at 54. Thank you very much, sir. I shall make you co-host. My regular co-hosts aren't on as yet. Thank you, Mr. St. John. If there are any other teachers who are on and you would not mind co-hosting this evening, I'm also asking if you are in the position to also look at the YouTube page. You can look at that as well. And if you see or observe questions, please bring it to my attention so that they will not be left out. Once I begin to present, I will not see those questions. So Mr. St. John, if you're able to do that, let me know. It's Write Like a Boss. Yeah, Write Like a Boss in YouTube. And this evening, as I indicated, we are talking about statistical reports. What comes to your mind when you hear statistical reports? And let me go here. So what comes to your mind? Raise your hands for me. Let's have that conversation before we jump in. What do you think about when you hear statistical reports? You can raise your hand. Let me get some feedback from you this evening. Anybody? There are 53 of you on here, 53 of us in Zoom. Anyone? What comes to your mind when you hear statistical reports? Okay. How many of you, anyone, show by raising your hands, have you ever done a statistical report before? Okay, I'm seeing one hand. Have you ever done a statistical report? Okay. I'm seeing a few hands being raised. Okay, lovely. So we have a few persons who have been exposed to statistical reports. Now let's make something very, 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 very clear. CXC, they have never brought statistical reports for the exam. They've never brought it, and it is the reason why we're looking at it this evening. I want to let you know why we're looking at it this evening. We've never seen it, but we want to make sure that you are prepared for whatever they bring. In January, CXC brought an article, and many of us were a bit surprised by that article. So one of the things we've discussed, some of the teachers, is to find a way to make sure that we cover everything imaginable that we believe CXC might bring for you. All right? To cover everything imaginable. I want you to take a look here, and this is an excerpt from the syllabus. And it explains why we are looking at statistical reports as well. Our CSEC English A syllabus, and tell me, let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. Right. Are you seeing the syllabus? You can just show by raising your hands. Okay. The syllabus indicates that section B, and that's what we're talking about. Section B consists of one compulsory question. It's informative discourse, which is the exposition. And this question will require candidates to respond to given stimulus material. I want you to see what it says here. The response may take the form of an email, letter, report, notice, or article. These are the 5 main areas that CXC has indicated you can be tested on for Section B. Because I wanted us to touch on this because I know many of you have been asking about other sections. And you've asked about minutes, about resumes, about other areas. But what the syllabus says is that the response may take the form of an email, a letter, a report, a notice, or an article. And these are the main areas that we have focused on. Now, because statistical report is a type of report, we felt that it was wise to also introduce you to that, give you an opportunity to look at the statistical report in case that comes, because we don't know what CXC will bring. And we really want to ensure that all of our students are prepared regardless of what comes. So let's jump into this. Let's jump into this, and I'm going to ask you, if you are ready, you can unmute yourself and just say, I am ready to go. I am ready to go. Let me hear you. I am ready to go. Can we hear that? You can open your mic. Let me hear some people. I am ready to go.
I am ready.
Ready to go.
Ready
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Ready.
I am ready to go.
Go fuck.
Right. So let's see. This person would have to be removed. One time. Beautiful. Right? Yes. Good. And we shall do that. Okay. Right? Okay, so we're going to do that one time. Okay. So we're going to get started. And we're going to be able to see how this is going to benefit you. But we really don't want distractions. We don't want the distractions for you, okay? Thank you very much. Okay, yes. Right. Right. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to remove this. All right, so we're ready to go. So let me move this back and we will not allow you to unmute yourself randomly. And these are some of the things that tend to happen. So let's go into our lesson. We want to look at statistical reports. And yesterday we looked at report writing and some of the same information that pertains to reports writing. You need to also apply that to the statistical report. So if you were here last week, not last week, if you were here last night, last evening, I'm encouraging you to pull out your notes on report writing because you will need the same information for your statistical report. The same structure applies. So have your notes ready because we are not reinventing the wheel. Okay? It is the same information, the same structure rather, but how are we applying that structure to a statistical report? So we're jumping in, and as we said before, we are ready to go. Okay, lovely. So what I'm going to do, Ms. Tadio, are you there?
I'm here, I can assist.
Right, so can I make you the host and you can make me co-host?
Okay, no problem.
Yes, so that my screen would not get clouded. And you, as I do that, you'll make me the co-host. All right. You'd have to make me co-host so I could share my screen.
I just did, so
Thank
you're
you so
all
much.
set.
Right, let's go. Right, so we are looking at statistical reports. Statistical reports for CSEC English A. And when we look at this, I want you to get some information as it relates to the statistical report. What this is a report that presents data and analysis in a structured way. It is and all of the expository writing, in fact, all of your writing is presented in a structured way. But for the purposes of the statistical reports or any of the reports, your structure has to include reporting on what it is you have observed. And you want to report on what has been observed in an organized manner. The purpose of the report is to communicate insights from numerical data clearly and concisely. I'm asking students, I want you to pay close attention as we go through. It is to communicate insights from numerical data clearly and concisely. What is meant by numerical data? What is numerical data? If you understand what it is, raise your hand. Ms. Tadio would open your mic. What is numerical data? Do we have anyone? Numerical data. I see Stephanie from Princeton West.
This is like numbers and percentages and stuff, ratios.
Numbers and percentages and stuff. Yes, ratios. Statistical data is any information presented using numbers. It is using the statistics, using the ratios. I see one person in YouTube who's indicated that statistical reports shouldn't exist. I agree with you. However, while it may feel as if it shouldn't exist, statistical reports are important. Statistical reports help us to understand what numbers are saying. This is the section of your English exam that combines your mathematics with your language arts. And the key component of your statistical report will be a title for the report, the introduction, the data presentation and analysis, followed by a conclusion. And we will talk about all of these things this evening. All right? So while you may feel as if statistical reports shouldn't exist, can anyone indicate ever having had an opportunity to look at a statistical report or look at statistics? Were there any examples in your life where statistics helped you to make a decision? Anyone? Anyone? Statistics helped you to make a decision. Numbers and a report on these numbers help you to decide on something to do or not do. Have you ever gone online and you looked and saw on a page, a web page, for example, in social media, do we look at how many people may have liked a comment? And it may have helped us to make a decision. Do the number of likes sometimes influence what we might do? And I'm seeing right in the right. I'm just checking. Right. Good. Yes. So I have one person who've indicated yes. Numbers help us to understand what is going on. If we see data, statistical data that tells us that 75% of students are likely to get a grade 1 in CSEC English A, wouldn't that encourage you to go and really do your best when you see high numbers indicating a high success rate? Figures have a way of helping us to make decisions, and it's important to know what it is these figures are saying, and more so, how can we write about it in a clear, concise manner? Why are statistical reports important for CSEC English E? Let me find out, show by a raise of hands, how many of you are doing CSEC Social Studies? CSEC Social Studies. Raise your hands if you're doing CSEC Social Studies. Raise your hands, raise your hands. Raise hands. All right. Seeing some numbers, so you can put it down. Next question. Next question. When you did your SBA for social studies, did you have to do an analysis of your data? Raise your hand if you had to. For CSEC social studies. Right, hands went back up. Now, I know for a fact that data analysis was important for social studies. I'm not sure about some of the other subjects. But for social studies, if you were able, and I'm hoping that you learned it before and you did a really good SBA, but when you do research, and some of you are going to go on to university or sixth form, and you will be involved in research, we need to teach you how to do that, even if it does not come for your exam. Even if you're not going to get a statistical report for the exam, when you are finished with secondary school, those of you who go on to tertiary education, you will need to know how to report on statistics. So that this is a part of your comprehensive English A education. And we want to make sure as your English teachers that you are prepared. So understanding the structure. Do I have a volunteer to read this evening? Let me get a volunteer to read. We are looking at understanding the structure of the statistical report. Can we have a volunteer? Yes,
Okay,
Andia.
and understanding the structure, play a title that summarizes the report's focus, introduction providing background and purpose, three-body paragraph detailing terms and specific details. Hold on, this blocking isn't
Sorry.
right. Detailing terms and specific details relating to what the data indicate, and the conclusion summarizing key points.
Thank you very much. Let's see if I can, I'm trying to move something off of the screen. Now, when we talk about the structure, and thank you very much, my dear. Are you seeing anything in this information that resembles what we spoke about last night or any other time with regard to expository writing? Anybody? What looks familiar? What are you seeing repeated that mirrors something you've done before? Yes. And Diane? Is your mic open? Okay, I don't think it is. Hold on. Just a second. And then your hand was up. What are you seeing that mirrors something that you've seen before? Anyone? All right, let's hear. Right, go ahead, Kaylee. Let me clear the screen. Yes, go ahead.
It mirrors just the general reports because the incident report that we did last night, we had to give the background and the introduction paragraph, which was the 5 Ws. The body of the paragraph was how, and a little more details on the 5 Ws, and then the conclusion was a summarization of key points.
Thank you. So we're seeing the same structure, the same type of structure, and we're maintaining that for most of our expository purposes. While we know that the email will have a different way of starting, we know the letters will have a particular way of starting. What we're talking here about is the body of your expository essay that would require you to write your introduction, at least 3 body paragraphs, and a clear conclusion. Right. So we spoke there about the structure of our report. I want us to take a look at this piece of information, and I want us to talk about it. It is based on a fictional republic of Ortonia. So in the chat, I want you to type a sentence indicating what you observe. And you can do this YouTube and Zoom. Type a sentence indicating what it is you've observed from the information, the data on the screen. Okay. Let's see, we're going to take a minute. I've given you 2 more minutes because I want to hear what you have to say before we jump into it. What are you getting out of this information? What are you seeing? What is it about? Take a minute and look at it. Observe it. All right. And I would want to ask, any of my co-hosts to read some of what it is you're seeing there. Can I have one of my co-hosts who might be able to do that so that I wouldn't have to switch screens? What are some of the statements students are making?
All right. So one person said it is organized in rows and columns like a spreadsheet.
Mhm.
Somebody indicated the amount of cars sold each year increases. Miss the different types of vehicles. I see a similar trend with the type of cars and the number of each imported each year.
Mhm.
The amount of cars increases after every year, and there was an increase of imports.
All right. So we're hearing certain statements and certain words. There are words that some of you are using that we're going to take some time to look at in some more detail, because these are words that are crucial when we talk about statistical reports. So here we go. And thank you again, students. When we look at statistical reports, CXC can present it to you either in the form of a table like this one. You can talk about reports as well in terms of bar graphs. And this is the same information on the table presented in a different format. You can also have them in the form of a line graph as well as a pie chart. But we're looking at these three this evening, but we're paying more attention to the tabular format, the format in the table. In 1987, CXC brought a statistical report for Section 1, Section A, where we now have the summary. But in 1987, in that section, CXC brought students a statistical report. Additionally, in 1998, CXC also brought a statistical report for students. Both those reports were in tabular form, like this, in the form of a table. But I need you to be aware of the fact that you can sometimes look at the data in the form of a bar graph and still be able to talk about some of the same things you spoke about before. And we also have it in the form of the line graph. Again, these are terms and these are diagrams that you've learned in mathematics, and you're seeing how it's coming together for the purposes of your CSEC English 8. So step one in writing your statistical report. I'm looking for a volunteer to read again. What is the first step? Step one, volunteer to read. I see Alaric P. His hand is raised. Go ahead as soon as your mic is open.
Identify relevant
Start with
statistical data.
Start with the top for me, please, Alaric. Step one, read the top. Step
one, selecting and organizing data. Identify relevant statistical data, examples, exam pass rates, attendance records. Observe what the data is saying. Are there any interesting features seen in the figures? Make a note of patterns and observations.
Thank you very much, Alaric. So we're seeing here, the first thing you need to do is identify the relevant statistical data. What this simply means is you need to identify what is this data about? Is it about exam pass rates? Is it about attendance records? Is it about population density? Is it about the frequency of rainfall? So in our instance, what is the data about? This keeps blocking us. I apologize. What is our data about? What is the information in our data? Anyone? The information, that's usually the heading. What is this data indicating? What is this data telling us? What is the information being presented in this data?
A student has indicated importation of car brands. in the
Now,
chat.
importation of car brands. Now, a very good and safe idea to bear in mind. If they have given you a heading, reuse that heading. So if we're going to reuse the information that they have actually given, what would be the data that is being presented? Anybody? What is the
So we
heading?
have two students. One indicated brand of vehicles imported from 2020 to 2024. Another indicated the vehicle imports by cars and years.
All right, but there's still something missing. There is still something missing. So you've told us what it is. You've told us when it is. Right, we've gotten what it is. You told us when it is, but we also need to know where it is. So in your heading, and we have it there, and this is a place that we just made up randomly. So give me now, type it in the chat. What is, and here's the question. I'm coming back to this. What is the relevant statistical data being presented? What is the statistical data being presented? What is the title? How do we express what is the statistical data being presented? Tell us what it is, where it's from, and when it's from. What is it? Where is it? When is it?
Alicia in the chat indicated it's a vehicle imports in the fictional Republic of Atonia, 2020 to 2024.
Fabulous. If they've given you the information, give them back. Put it back there. So you need to indicate what this data represents. It's the vehicle imports, the fictional Republic of Atonia for the period 2020 to 2024. We're going back to this part. So you need to identify what is the relevant statistical data. So if it's exam pass rates for which country, which territory, which school, for what period? Is it just for exam pass rates for one academic year, the 3 terms for the academic year? Or is it the exam pass rates for CXC for a specific subject or subjects at your school? Are you looking at the attendance records for a particular parish or community over a period of time? And after you've identified what the relevant statistical data is, look at what the data is saying. Are you seeing anything that's interesting? And this is what you typed before. And some of you indicated what it is you saw in the data and you made a note of those observations. The next thing, and let me get someone else to read, what is step 2? Step 2. Can I have a reader? Step 2.
Okay. Stating, okay, Step 2, writing the introduction. Provide background information on the topic. State the purpose of the report and briefly mention the data being analyzed.
Beautiful. And I'm hoping that persons are writing these things down because we're going to pull it all together shortly. After you've observed what the data is about, and you've made a note of that, and then you go through the data to see what are some of the things you're seeing in the figures. You want to start to draft an introduction, and this introduction should provide some background information on the topic, indicating, in your case here, and we'll look at an example later on, what is this data, the data that you're looking at, where is it from, when is it from, and what is it presenting? And then indicate your purpose for writing the report. And in this case, it would be to present an analysis of what the data indicated, what the data illustrated, what was revealed in the data. And you mention what is that data that you're going to analyze. You're going to see this evening as well how you can elaborate on this for your introduction, but I want us to take it step by step. Again, we don't know if it would come, but we want you to have an idea of how to approach it. Step 3, can we have a reader? Step 3. Yes, who do we have?
Miss, can I read?
Sure, you can. Miss Tadia, can you remove me from being a co-host? Please.
Sure, no problem.
Yes, the controls keep blocking the screen. So I'm hoping that it still allows me to share. Right? So what you may need to do now is
I will organize to give you sharing ability. Let me just get it.
thank you. Because I keep getting things that are blocking the screen and blocking students. All right. Thank you. So I'm seeing Amelia's hand is up. And right. Thank you, Miss. It's still going to happen. I'm not getting rid of it at all. Right, Amelia, go ahead and read. Just a second.
Do you have access to share?
I'm sharing.
Okay, good. Nice.
Yes, I'm sharing. Thank you. But it's, yes, the situation is still as is. Go ahead, Amelia. Saw a hand up before. Amelia had a hand up. Or anybody else who's going to volunteer to read?
Presenting data effectively. The body part.
Go ahead.
Presenting data effectively. Body paragraphs. General observations from the data.
Yes.
Miss, you're not hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Oh.
Go
Discuss information by section and summarize key points from the data.
Thank you. When you get to the body paragraphs, you're going to start by looking at, probably in your first body paragraph, what are some general observations from the data under review? What are some of the things you've seen? And then you can take a next paragraph and deal with, if it's one of the vehicles in the case of our data, or you may look at what you observe over the 5 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. What were the things you observed over the 5-year period? And discuss that as a paragraph. Discuss what you're seeing for Toyota in one paragraph. What you saw for Ford in one paragraph. Probably what you saw for Hyundai and Honda in separate paragraphs. Or you can combine vehicles into paragraphs. But you don't want your information to be all over. So when we say discuss the information by sections, you can put them together depending on what the information is. You can also look at your total column as a separate paragraph. and you want to summarize those key points, probably from the total in a paragraph on its own. Right, step 4. Let's get a reader. Yes, step number 4.
Step 4. Analyzing the findings. Just now that you're reading. Explain trends, patterns, and comparisons in the data. Highlight significant results using
Statistical.
terms. Use linking phrasing like this suggests that or the data indicates that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So this is the meat of your report. How do you explain? And there's some words here that we're going to look at in more detail. How do you explain trends? We will talk about the patterns and comparisons. We will look at statistical terms, but we do not want to forget the linking phrases, these transition phrases that would help you link the ideas and link the information, and you can use, and you will get a list of such phrases. Things like, this suggests that there were increases, or the data indicates that. Right. Good. So step 5. Let's get a reader. Step number 5. Step number 5.
Step number 5, writing the conclusion. Summarize the key findings, restate the purpose of the report, and avoid introducing new data.
Beautiful. This is your conclusion. This is you tying it all up in a nice and a neat bow to conclude your report. Conclude by summarizing the key findings. What were some of the main things that stood out? Restate what the report aimed to do, and ensure that you're not talking about anything new that was not discussed before. All right? Before we go there, any questions? Okay, so let's move on. Now we're looking at some important statistical terms. These are terms that you will need to use if you're writing a statistical report. The first one is the word trend. A trend is a general direction of change over time. Have you ever heard the word trend with regard to social media when something is trending? Are you familiar with the term in social media? Do we have hands raised? We know when something is trending, and it can be trending in a favorable direction or in an unfavorable direction. But what makes it a trend is that people are talking about it or engaging with it or exploring it on a large scale. With statistical report writing, you want to talk about what is occurring repeatedly. It's a general direction of change over time. Is it that the trend you are seeing for a particular area, is it trending downwards? Is the trend an upward trend? Is it that the trend seems to indicate that there's no movement? So you're looking at, and in the case of our data, we're going to talk about it. What is the general trend? Another term is fluctuation. And a fluctuation speaks about a rise and fall in data over time. Is it that we're seeing in 1 year we have the figure at a particular level, but the following year it dropped. But the next year it went up, and then it dropped again, and then it went up again. It's a sort of seesaw in the data. And we describe this by calling it a fluctuation. Let's go back to our data. Look at what we have here. Are there any trends? Are you seeing any fluctuations? And you can raise your hand, and I want you to tell me, if we can have a few persons, what is one trend you observed? Are you seeing fluctuations in any of the data? Those of you who are in YouTube, you can also type it out, because again, even though we don't expect them to bring it, we don't know if they will. I shouldn't say we don't expect them. We don't know if it will come. But if it does come, how will you approach this? And tonight is the night for you to try it, type it, see where we're going with it, so that you can feel more confident if indeed you have this happens to come for the exam. So what do we
This
have?
is seen one in Honda, I think for the years as it go down.
Okay, so you're seeing in Honda, it went down every year? Look at Honda. What took place with Honda?
It didn't go down every year. It's decreased from 2020 to 2022, and then it went back up in 2023 and went back down in, I think it's 2024.
So what do we call that? If it went up and it went down and it went up and it went down again, what's the word we're using for that? Anyone? Anybody has that word? What is the word we're using with the date? Fluctuations. So we're seeing with Honda, you're seeing fluctuations. It was at 360, then it went up to 370, then it went back down to 355, it went up to 365, and then it fell again to 350 vehicles or 350 units of vehicles. Any other things, any other observations? And I will not be able to see the chat at the moment, so that if you can open your mic and let us know, can I have any other observations?
There is a decrease in Ford sales or imports.
All right. We saw a decrease. From what to what? Where did it start and what did it end with? And by that, what was the figure in 2020 and what was the final figure by 2024?
Messi was 315 2020 and 217 2024. And we also seen a fluctuation in
yes.
in Toyota. We're seeing 500 in 2020, 550 in 2021. It increased again in 2022 to 600. 2023 decrease, and 2024 it increased.
Now, did Toyota have, it went up, went down, went up, went down? Or look and tell me what happened with Toyota. Did it go up and come down and go up and come down, go up again?
Yes, miss.
Look carefully. When did it go down? How many times did it go down?
Oh, it went down once in 2023.
Right. And so you have to be very careful with your observation, because, and I'm glad that you raised it. If you look at Toyota, you will see, so it went down in 2023. So what can you now say about the data for Toyota? Is it that it fluctuated? You want to try again for me? I want to hear you again. Don't get shy on us. What happened to Toyota's data from 2020 to 2022? Anyone?
Is it increased?
It increased. So we're seeing increases every year, and we're going to talk about it. And then what happened in 2023?
It decreased.
And then by 2024, what happened again by
it increased again.
It increased again. So you need to be able to explain, well, not explain, but to describe this. So as you look at the data, and thank you very much for those of you who volunteered, and I'm seeing only I think it's only Kyle's on YouTube, and yes, it did fluctuate. You saw the word fluctuate. Look at all of them and see if we're seeing increases, decreases. What are the trends? Observe with the total number. Look at the total on this side. What are the trends? What are you seeing with the total? Anybody? Students, I believe, are using the chat. Anybody could open their mic?
Miss,
Yes.
from 2020 to 2021, there was an increase, increase in trend. However, from 2022 to 2023, there was a plateau phase, and from 2023 to 2024, it increased again.
Now, hold on. Don't close off your mic yet. You use the word there, and I want you to explain that word for the benefit of the other students who are on. You said that 2022 and 2023, there was a
Plateau.
And what does that plateau mean?
Constant, so no increase, no decrease.
Yes, no increase, no decrease. It just remain in the same place. And you said it plateau, and that's a geography term indicating that landmass that just seems to be flat on top. Because when you look at it in a a bar graph, and we will take a look at one of those, take a look at it again when we get to another part. So I'm glad that those of you who've volunteered to explain these observations. So thank you very much. So these are preliminary investigations. Thank you, Young Q. Steady increase, where you're seeing the steady increase, Young Q, on YouTube. Let us know where you're seeing that steady increase, because that is, and we're coming to those terms. Steady increase, plateau, it remains stagnant. Here we go. Here are some other terms. Steady increase, where there's a gradual continuous rise in the data, or you can have a sharp increase, where it's a sudden rise. You can have a steady decrease. Similarly, a sharp decrease. And when you talk about how the data moves, it is important to not just say that you saw an increase, but what kind of increase? I will go a step further and indicate, students, when you're seeing, let's look at the table here. When you see the increases or decreases, for the purposes of your report, it is a good idea to indicate how much it increased or decreased by. So let's take, for example, Toyota. If you look at the trend for Toyota, let me not take Toyota. Let's take a look at Ford. Take a look at Ford. What are you observing to be the trend for Ford? Look at the figures. Look at the figure and type it in a sentence. Tell me what is the trend and what is the variation, if I could use that word. What is the trend and how much does the trend change by every year? I hope you understand the question. I'm looking for a particular kind of answer. Look at Ford. What is the trend you're seeing in Ford? And anyone could open your mic. You can open your mic and tell me. If raise your hand so we can open the mic. What is the trend you're observing in Ford? So I'm going to open up the chat and see what you're saying. It will block the screen for a little bit. Go ahead. Right, I'm seeing what I'm looking for. Good. Tell me what it is you're observing with Ford. Somebody's mic was opening just now. What are you observing with Ford? What is the trend?
The students are saying that there's an interval of 20 cars each, decrease of 20 present, 20 car in each year, there was a decrease.
Yes. Every year, the volume of vehicles, and this is how you'll need to express it. Vehicle imports for Ford decreased by 20 cars each year over the period 2020 to 2024, starting at 350 units and ending with 270. So you need to indicate what the trend is, what was the variation you're seeing. So the trend is that it was decreasing. The variation is it was decreasing by 20 cars each year for the period 2020, which started at 350 cars in 2020 and reduced to 270 cars by 2024. So you need to also write in within the report, when you make a sentence, you write a sentence about the trend, you need to also show what the figures indicate. You will get these examples towards the end of our discussion here, because I want you to see how you should write this. Lovely.
Young Q is saying that it's a steady decrease.
Yes, steady
on YouTube.
decrease. Yes, I see Young Q, right? Steady decrease. And you're using the vocabulary, steady decrease, because you're seeing it. It's by the same amount every year. There was not a gap where it went up. It's not fluctuating. It's not a sharp decrease that it jumped from a decrease of 20 cars to a whole decrease of 100 cars, and then it went back to 15 cars. It steadily decreased at a rate of 20 cars per year over the 5-year period. Lovely. Let's continue. So we had here steady increase, sharp increase, steady decrease, and I would ask you to also include, if you're writing this down, include sharp decrease. I think I may have it on the next slide, but still put it there. Sharp decrease. Let's continue. Right. Then we have, let's check back here. Right. We spoke about the increases and decreases. Now, we have here some other terms. Stagnant, where there's no significant change over time. This is similar to one of your colleagues who said plateau earlier. When it's stagnant, it's a plateau. It has not gone anywhere for a period of time. And this is what the data, we looked at the data for one of those vehicles. We'll look at it again. So it would plateau, or it has gotten stagnant. It has remained still. There has not been any change or movement. And that is one of the words. We can say stagnant, but the student who said plateau earlier, I am not going to change that word for you. I like that you're using it. It's also an acceptable way of expressing this type of phenomena, this type of occurrence in the data. We also have
A student is
yes.
asking in the chat if they can use the word stationary.
I don't usually see the word stationary in statistical data reports, but I understand why you're thinking to use it. But it's not normally a word associated with reporting on statistics. We talk about plateau has been used, stagnant, it's stagnation. It has remained steady, no change over a period of time. Those are some of the words that I would normally see. And while stationary carries the same meaning, I have not, and apart from us talking about this, even in doing research at the tertiary level, I have not come across stationary as a term used to describe observances with statistical data. I hope that helps. Right. We also talk about the peak, the highest point in the data set. It's the highest point in your data, in your figures. Where do we see the increase? Where is it the highest? So let's take a look here. We're going back. Do we see any areas where the data was stagnant? Any areas where we see a peak in the imports? And I know we spoke about stagnation with one of the areas in the data set earlier. Where did we see that stagnation? Where did it get stagnant? We have volunteers to tell us. Where was it stagnant?
The total importations were stagnant between the years 2022 and 2023.
And indicate the figure. Say what the figure is. At how many? How many vehicles? Can you unmute again and tell us? Raise your hand so that they can unmute you.
Okay,
right.
1,985.
1,985 vehicles. Make sure you indicate what the figures are relating to. Thank you so much. So there, we see it became stagnant 2022 to 2023. Do we have any peaks in the data? Where are we seeing peaks in the data? Let's get those. Peaks in the data. Tell us where you're seeing peaks. Do we have volunteers? Look at each vehicle and tell us in which year you saw a peak in the number of imports.
So Toyota had a peak in 2024 with a total of 620 imports.
Right.
Nissan had a peak in also 2024 with a total of 460 imports.
Right.
Ford had a peak in 2020 with a total of 350 imports.
Mm-hmm.
Honda had a peak in 2021 with a
Right.
total of 370. Hyundai had a peak in also 2024 with a total of 320.
All right. Thank you. So when you look at it this way, what do you also notice after I've circled it like this? What do you notice in terms of the peak imports for all of these vehicles? For each year? Anybody? What it is the data has told you about vehicle imports for Autonia, our fictional country, when we look at these, look at the information. Any volunteers? Anybody in the chat? What do you observe for each of those years in relation to the vehicle imports?
In the chat, Alicia says in 2004, the peak total was 2020. Maybe is she saying the same as 2020? What is she saying?
It was 2020. So what she's saying is that—
Oh, 2020, totally.
Right. The increase in 2024, the total was 2020. But what do you observe before you get to the total? What is the data showing you for the individual vehicles for that year 2024? What can we say about vehicle imports in 2024? For each car company? Yes. Take a look at it.
And Jan in the chat says most importation of cars took place in 2024.
All right. Okay. But can we also say that 2024 was a good year for car imports for Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai? Because these three companies had their peak sales in 2024. And we can observe that. It was not as probably profitable for Ford and Honda. Their peak sales occurred earlier up in 2020 and 2021. And you see that they had decreases after that. But we can identify that Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai experienced peak sales for vehicles in 2024 with 620, 460, and 320 vehicle imports respectively. I'm using terms that may confuse you. I don't want to do that. But I want to make sure that you have observed that this is what we're seeing with these three companies. Are we seeing that? Give me a thumbs up if you're seeing that. Give us a thumbs up if you're seeing that. Right, so let's move on. Good. Now, this information, while you look at it and you can see where the peak periods are, it's usually easier to see the peaks when the data is presented like this, because you're able to actually see at a glance where you're finding the highest points for each aspects of your data set. And I just wanted you to see it in this format because you're also able to see at a glance, this is the same data that's on the chart, on the table. And at a glance, you can see which company overall had the highest vehicle imports. Which company overall had the highest? Which company had the highest vehicle imports over the period, consistently the highest?
I'm seeing students saying Toyota.
Right. When it's presented like this, it's usually very easy to see it, see the data telling you this. And that's a term we use sometimes, letting the data speak. The data will say things. And in this format, it is clear, you can see it clearly, that Toyota's had the highest number of vehicle imports consistently every single year. And none of the others were able to surpass. If we go back, look at it on the table, every single year, Toyota outperformed all of the other companies. And again, this is what you're seeing in the data. Right. Another, here are two other terms, important statistical terms, and we're continuing. We talk about a decline or even a sharp drop. The decline is self-explanatory. It's a reduction in the values over time. It can be a steady decline or just a decline, or you can have a sharp drop where there's a sudden and significant decrease. I remember discussing this with a class last month, and we were talking about Tesla. Who owns Tesla? Do you know who owns Tesla? What is Tesla? I'm throwing that out there. What is Tesla and who owns it?
Students are saying Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Tesla is his automobile company, his electric cars, and his stocks, the stocks in Tesla, saw a sharp drop in the stock market the last few months. After having increases, it suddenly went down. And yeah, we want to be able to understand. I need you to be able to understand how to talk about this. Let's take a look here. So discuss any declines. And I think we spoke about it before. And because we spoke about it before, I'm not going to go over it in detail, because what it is you identified earlier is that you saw the decreases with Ford. You observed that continuous decline. You saw it every single year. Ford, during this period, continued to decline. Okay? This decline is going to be different from where we see the fluctuations that we spoke about before, where it will go up and come down and go up and come down. Or if we just see a steady increase. Moving on, because I want us to take a look at some examples as well this evening. Right. Now, here are some phrases, useful phrases to describe data in a statistical report. And I'd like volunteers to read these phrases that we're looking at here. So can I have a volunteer for this part? Useful phrases. Give us the heading and read through. And I would like you to save it. Note too that it is being, you will have access to the YouTube video if you would want to go over this. Do we have a volunteer to read?
Please remind them to raise their hands so that we can unmute the mic. Sure.
Thank you. Yes, raise your hand.
I see you. I'm going to unmute you now.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a volunteer.
General trends.
Start with up here for me.
Oh, here are some useful phrases to describe data in a statistical report. General trends. The data shows an upward/downward trend in. There was a steady increase/decrease in. The figures remain relatively stable over the period. The trend fluctuated between and. A noticeable pattern emerged showing that.
Thank you very much. I want to bring your attention back to this one. The trend fluctuated between one option and another. So in each of these cases, they're just giving you some ways to explain what it is you're seeing the data doing. How is the data behaving? And not just that you're going to say, well, Toyota increased and then Ford decreased, but that you can say the data shows an upward trend in Toyota sales. Let's type that in, because if you're visual like I am, you need to see it. So let's take this one. Let's see. I'm going to do this here. Okay. It shows an upward. Let's do this first. I want to right. So we're going to take this here. The data shows an upward trend in, and we put it here. Oh, that's white. An upward trend in let's bring this over here. Right. So what we have, the data shows an upward trend in Toyota sales during the period 2020 to 2024. You're seeing how to use the sentence, how to use the phrase. What you're going to do for me in the chat, I want you to make a note of these phrases, and we're going to go back and look at the table for a little bit. And I want you to use these phrases and construct sentences based on what it is you're seeing in the data. Before you can write the whole report, you need to be able to know how to structure individual sentences and observations. All right. So let's take a look at the data. We're going back to the table. And I want you to use these phrases in the table. Just now. Take down this as well. Let me get someone else to read this one before we go back to the table. Someone else would read this. We'll go back to the table and you're going to write some examples. Do I have a volunteer to read? And you'll be reading from comparing data. Raise your hand if you want to read and your mic will be engaged.
Comparing data. Compared to the previous year, there was a significant rise in. In contrast to the earlier period, the numbers dropped sharply. While Subject A showed improvement, Subject B experienced a decline. The pass rate in 2024 was twice as high as in 2022. English A had a higher success rates than mathematics with.
Yes, this was, I didn't take this one out. The original data set that I was going to share with you was fictional scores for English A and mathematics. But you can still use the example for the vehicles that we're looking at. 1 second here. Right. Good. So these here, and we have another set. So we looked at, go back here. We looked at how you express general trends, how you talk about and write about general trends. And now here we looked at how you discuss or describe the comparison of the data, what it is you're seeing from one year to the next? Or what are you seeing, or what's being observed when you look at one car company versus another? Take a look at this one too. Can I have a volunteer to read describing peaks and lows? Right. Peaks and lows. How do we describe peaks and lows? Volunteer to read. And then we'll go back to the table.
Describing
Raise your hand.
peaks
Go ahead.
and lows.
Yes.
The highest or lowest point was recorded in the pass rate peaked at before declining. The sharpest drop occurred between and after reaching its lowest level. The figures began to recover. There was a sudden spike in due to.
Right. Now, you may not be able to refer to the due to. You will not know the reasons for changes in the data. So you can ignore the due to. But I want you to take a moment to take a screenshot of this, write it down. We're going to go back and look at the data. And I want you to give me some examples using the chat. Type it in the chat or open the mic and share with us ways of describing the data using these phrases. All right? Ways of describing the data using the phrases. When you are ready to describe the data, let's get thumbs up. Show us a thumbs up in the chat, or not in the chat. Use the emotions. Use your emotions in Zoom or YouTube when you're ready. And I want you to give some examples. Type some sentences. Go brave. Let's be confident. You're going to try. Okay. All right. So let's go back and look at the data. Here we go. Explain what it is the data is showing us. What is the data showing us? What are you seeing in the data? Ignore the discuss any declines here. That was for something else before. But I want you to write a sentence or two or three using the phrases that we just spoke about. How can we describe the data? Let me see where we are here. Do we have any samples in the chat? I really want you to have an opportunity to write something out. My YouTube participants have gone quiet. Okay, so this data is showing YouTube is showing the amount of vehicles imported in the past 4 years. For YouTube, indicate also where and which 4 years, because it's important to also indicate which 4 years we're talking about and where were the vehicles imported. Do we have any in Zoom?
All right, we have one in Zoom. A noticeable pattern emerged in the vehicular importation in Ford from the period 2020 to 2024. The imported vehicles dropped from 350 in 2020 to 270 in 2024, with a steady decreasing interval of 20 cars.
Thank you. That is a very good example of how to explain what you're observing in the data using those statistical terms, using those phrases. Thank you very much. We have, I'm seeing in YouTube, the data is showing the amount of imported vehicles in the, okay, that's the same one, right? All right, for the past 4 years, 2020 to 2024, but also include the country. Where is it from? And what it is I'm getting from the folks in YouTube would be examples of how you can express this for your introduction. You start off with the general, what it is we're seeing. What is this data in front of us? Amount of vehicles imported in the fictional Republic of Ortonia the past 4 years, from 2020 to 2024. That is where you would want to begin. What is this data about? And then we'll begin to break it down. Any others in Zoom?
Kyla suggested there was a sudden spike in the total amount of cars from 1,985 to 2,020 cars imported from the years 2003 to 2004 in the Republic of Ortonia.
Right. Thank you, Kyle. But Kyla also needed to make sure you observe that that 1,985 also represents the figure for 2022. All right. So when we look at the data in front of us, we have to make sure we're seeing everything that it is saying. Thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate this. And we're learning how to express it, but I just want to make sure that you're covering everything you observe. Can we have 2 more persons before we move on? I don't know if we have any more in the chat.
We have another one in the chat. She states, the data presented illustrates the importation levels in the Republic of Ortonia. For Toyota during the year 2020 to 2022, there was a steady increase in the number of cars by an interval of 50. However, between the years 2022 and 2023, a sharp decrease occurred as the number of cars imported decreased by 20 cars. After reaching the lowest level in 2023, the number of cars imported increased to 620 in 2024.
Right. We had a detailed analysis for Toyota. That represents an entire paragraph. And you're sharpening your skills. And I suspect you may have done statistical reports with your teacher at school already. And you can let me know if that is the case as well. But that is a good analysis. The other thing I will tell you here, I'm seeing from Young Q in YouTube, after reaching its lowest number in 2020, Nissan began to increase up to, and put the amount. So after reaching its lowest number in 2020, and so you should put there of 400 cars, Nissan began to increase up to 2024 with 460 cars. So put the figures in as well. Okay, Young Q, add in how many cars were represented each year. Now, for those students who are really strong mathematics students, you can decide to work out the percentages to show what, so to indicate by what percentage what the increase might have been. And I'm saying it because I remember being a student way back in the 1980s. In fact, I have a past paper book here with the paper that I did in 1988. When we were doing the reports for our exam, we learned how to calculate the variations so that if we saw a 50% increase, a 20% decrease, so it added another layer of discussion for our report. I'm adding it there only for those of you who really enjoy mathematics and you can calculate. You're not using a calculator. You will need to know how to work that out quickly without losing time. And it's only if the data is observable. So from 500 to 550, it's an increase of what percent? You can calculate that quickly. You know, from 500 to 550, it's increased by what percent? I'm stressing y'all out now with mathematics in the middle of language arts. What is the difference?
Zeke Lord has a question. He raised his hand.
Yes, go ahead, Zeke. Could open his mic. What is the variation?
I'm not seeing Zeke. Could he raise his hand so that we can
Raise your hand again, Zeke.
He typed 10% increase in the chat.
Right.
So was Kimura.
Yes, 10%. And Zeke is a student that I know very well, and I know he likes his mathematics, and he's doing well with his math. So where you can, those of you who are strong mathematics students, you can do that calculation and indicate that Toyota had increases of or by 10% in from 2020 to 2021, and again from what's the percentage from 2021 to 2022, before seeing a decrease by 20 units or 20 cars in 2023. However, by 2024, the car company had its highest vehicle imports of 620 units. You want to use the language of the statistics, the language of the data when you are describing this. Is this clear? Am I being clear, students? Let me know if it's making sense, if you're getting some clarity with the statistical reports. I know that the mathematics may not be everybody's friend, but you can keep it simple and just talk about what it is you are seeing. A difference of 20, a difference of 30, it's a difference of 10. Talk about it like that. Is it helping? And I'm not able to see chats or reactions, but I'm hoping I'm seeing that there's some thumbs up. All right, so let's move on here.
In the chat, they are indicating yes, miss.
Good. That's very good to know. So let's go back here. I'm hoping that you took down or took a picture of the general trends. If you did not take a screenshot or wrote down these phrases, the general trends, the phrases when you're comparing the data, or the phrases to describe the peaks and the lows, students, the video will be available in YouTube. Please go back and check it. Common errors to avoid: poor organization of your data. We're going to look at a sample before we leave tonight. Poor organization of the data. You want to avoid situations where there's a lack of clarity in your analysis, a lack of clarity in how you're describing what you're seeing. So again, in that example where someone indicated there was a decrease of 1,985 cars in a particular year, you don't want to omit that figure represented the amount for 2 years. Additionally, and we spoke about this, Ms. Tadia spoke about this yesterday, your report is not supposed to be based on your opinion. When you're writing the report, now for your reports, because you're making up the information in most of your other expository pieces, When you're writing the report, you want to use a language that is indicative of factual discussion. You're using language that represents imagined facts, if I can call it that. Similarly, for this statistical report, you can only speak about what was observed. You can only discuss what the data says. You're not going to indicate that the car sales for Toyota remained at the highest level for all of the vehicles because more people in Antonio preferred Toyota to any other vehicle. You don't know the reason. It could just be that Toyota was more expensive and most persons may have been lower income earners and could not afford it. But we don't know this. So do not use opinion in the report. You need to use the factual information and give factual interpretation. Do not have you want to avoid missing or unclear conclusions. There should be a conclusion at the end of your presentation of the data, and it needs to be clear. Additionally, come back here. So these are some of the trends and some ways of expressing what it is we saw in that data. Can I have a volunteer to read this? These are some of the things that you should have been able to observe. And some of you sent messages, you typed in the chat, you typed in YouTube or Zoom indicating this. Can we have a volunteer to read? Raise your hand if you're going to read. Any volunteers, or we're getting sleepy? We're pushing through. Let's go. Who's reading for us?
Okay. Trends and fluctuations on the vehicle imports data. Ford experienced a steady decline in imports, decreasing by 20 units each year, from 350 in 2020 to and to 270 in 2024. Honda's imports fluctuated throughout the period, rising and falling alternately from 360 units in 2020 to 350 in 2024. Toyota generally steady increase, starting at 500 units in 2020 and reaching 620 in 2024, despite a minor dip in 2023. Hyundai's imports increased gradually each year with no declines or fluctuations from from 250 units in 2020 to 320 in 2024. The total number of vehicles imported peaked in 2024 at 2,020 units, following a period of consistent growth, except for 2023, when totals remain unchanged from the previous year.
Beautiful. And are you seeing how the information is presented based on the data that we looked at? We went through it, we spoke about it, you sent information. These are some examples of sentences that you can use to explain what you've observed in your data. We're going to look at how to pull this together for an actual report. Okay? But I want you to remember that the language and tone in the statistical report must remain objective. You're using neutral language. Avoid emotive or biased statements. And you want to be precise and specific in your descriptions. And this is because the statistical report, as an expository example of writing, must maintain a formal tone. It is not the story where you can become imaginative and creative and use your emotive language. It's not the persuasive essay where you can use strong emotional expressions. It has to remain neutral. So let's take a look at a sample now. And let me stop sharing. Right? Are we still here? We ready to go? Anybody ready to go home, or you're home? Is there anyone who wants to log off and go to sleep? We're staying on. We're staying on to get that grade 1, okay? Staying on to get a grade 1. Let me see those who are aiming for the grade 1. We're staying on for the grade 1. 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 So let me pull up the sample. Oh, right, it's over on this side. Right, statistical report. We're going to look at a statistical report, and I'm asking for, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 paragraphs. This is a 6-paragraph report based on the same data that we've been looking at. So I'd want a volunteer. If we have more than one person, let's see, raise your hand if you're going to read. So I'll know how to tell you to read. Who are the persons reading? One person. If we have 2, we can split it in half. If we have one person and it's 6 paragraphs, let's go. All right, so I'm seeing two readers. So Shekinah, you dropped your hand. Shekinah, okay. Andian and Jessica and Shekinah. So we have 3 readers. Each of you will take 2 paragraphs. So Jessica, then Andiana, then Shekinah. You'll each read 2 paragraphs. So let's go. Here we go. I would enlarge on this. All right. So we're looking at the statistical reports based on vehicle imports in the Republic of Ortonia 2020 to 2024. I'm increasing this a little bit. Let me increase it some more. Right. So you can go ahead and begin to read first reader. Oh, we didn't open your mic.
Okay.
Mic, go ahead.
This report presents statistical data on the importation of 5 major vehicle brands: Toyota, Nissan, Ford, Honda, and Hyundai, into the fictional country of Ortonia over a 5-year period from 2020 to 2024. It outlines observable trends in total vehicle imports and provides a breakdown of each brand's performance. Total vehicle imports increased from 1,860 units in 2020 to 2,020 units in 2024. The growth was steady and gradual over the 5 years, with an increase of 80 units from 2020 to 2021 and a sharper increase of 105 units from 2021 to 2022. From 2022 to 2023, the total number remained unchanged at 1,985 units, followed by another gradual increase of 35 units in 2024.
Thank you very much. Our next reader. You might need to put your hand up so the host can unmute you.
Miss, just give me a second to lower my hand so it wouldn't block the screen.
Okay.
Okay. In 2020, the total imports were at their lowest, with 1,860 vehicles. The highest growth occurred in 2022, with a total of 1,985 units. reflecting the peak of the 5-year period alongside 2023. Although 2023 did not surpass the previous year's figure, it maintained the same level. The highest number of imports overall were recorded in 2024 at 2,020 vehicles. The only year with no increase in the imports was 2023, which remained flat compared to 2022. Ford showed a steady decline in imports over the 5 years, starting at 350 units in 2020. Its numbers dropped by 20 units each year, ending at 270 in 2024. This represents the sharpest and most consistent decline, although all brands, in contrast, Honda's import figures fluctuated. After starting at, Mommy, I read it now. After starting at 360 units in 2020, it rose to 370 in 2021, dropped to 355 in 2022, increased again to 365 in 2023, and fell once more to 350 in 2024.
Thank you so very much. Tell mommy good night for all of us. Thank you very, very much. We know this is sometimes what can happen when we're on Zoom, so don't worry about it at all. Next reader. Raise your hand so we can find you. Do we have the next reader, or did they change their mind and we have another volunteer? Just raise your hand if you want to read the last 2 paragraphs.
Toyota experienced a generally steady increase in vehicle imports. It began at 500 units in 2020, peaked at 600 in 2022, dipped slightly to 580 in 2023, then rose again to 620 in 2024. Nissan recorded consistent annual growth, increasing from 400 in 2020 to 460 in 2024. Hyundai's imports also increased each year, beginning at 250 units and reaching 320 by the final year, with no years of decline or fluctuation. The data shows an overall upward trend in vehicle imports into Autonia over the 5-year period. While brands like Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai demonstrated varying degrees of steady increases, Ford consistently declined. Honda, meanwhile, showed a fluctuating pattern across the years. The highest total imports occurred in 2024, while the lowest was in 2020, and 2023 was the only year without any overall increase.
Thank you very much, students. So let me decrease this here is a sample of a 6-paragraph statistical report. We had our introduction, and the introduction itself covered 2 parts. No, let's start here. This was our introduction. I want you to see the introduction. The information that was covered in the introduction tells us what? What is the information covered in the introduction? Look at it carefully. Raise your hand. What it is we covered in the introduction based on what we went through before. The introduction is supposed to give you what? See someone in the chat. Not just the period that it represents, but it's telling you what we're talking about, where we're talking about, and when we're talking about. Remember that, and I'm going to put that note here. The introduction for your statistical report, it should tell you, come back here, your introduction for the statistical report will tell you what it is we're talking about, where it's taking place, and when. So what is it we're talking about? Where it's happening and when it's happening. So what is it? Where is it? When is it? Don't forget that. Generally, the statistical report will focus on not so much the who, not so much. Sometimes you may get the who if you're talking about statistics based on, let's say, a school, but I will still call it the where. So who it is we're talking about or where we're talking about. What are we talking about? Data related to grades? Are we talking about findings from observation? So the social studies students, how many students travel by bus, or with data related to students' transportation options? That is the what. Whatever the data is showing us, that is the what. Where is the data taken from? Which country, which school, which sector of the population? You need to say the where. And when is the data reflective of? In this case, we're looking at 2020 to 2024. We don't really look at the who, what, when, where. We're not looking at the why. We're not looking at the why, and we're not looking at how. So when we talk about the 5 W's and H, we are focusing on 3 of the W's, okay? Not so much the who as much as where, and not the why. So please pay attention to this for your introduction. Then we get to these 2 paragraphs that are following that will provide general trends. What is the general observable trend? Before we get into what we're seeing with the individual vehicles. So we have a paragraph or 2, as the case may be, that looks at the general, the total. What did we see for the total vehicle imports over the period? Which year had the highest, which one had the lowest, and indicate what the figures showed you. What is the difference? And we're seeing in this one, we had a steady and gradual growth, or steady and gradual increase. And they said by how much? 80 units from 2020 to 2021. And a sharper increase of 105 units. The calculations need to be done. You're going to have to do some subtractions and divisions and multiplication and work out the percentages. For those of you who are able to do that, only if you can do it. If this is a challenge for you to calculate, leave it alone and just stick with what you are seeing in the data. But please make sure that you refer to the numbers. Say what the numbers were for that year and what it changed to by the following year. This report continued with what happened in 2020 being having the lowest number. So we spoke about increases, then we saw a decrease here in 2020, the highest growth occurred in 2022, and we speak about these things in general terms, okay? That is what we do before we go on. This is why when I gave you all the notes before, We talk about general observations before you go to the specifics. And the specifics will now take us into what did we see for Ford? So we have Ford, we talk about Ford. Then we talk about Honda. And we can deal with two of the car companies in one paragraph. Then we take the other three, Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai. And these were the three companies that had their peak periods in 2024. So we can take these three together. And then we give the concluding statement that generalizes what the report presented, said it summarizes what the report was about. The data shows an overall upward trend in vehicle imports into Ortonia over the 5-year period, while brands like Toyota, Nissan, and Hyundai demonstrated varying degrees of steady increases. And we saw that Ford consistently declined. Honda, meanwhile, showed a fluctuating pattern across the years. The highest total imports occurred in 2024, while the lowest was in 2020, and 23 was the only year without any overall increase. This is an example of how you can put this together if you are called to do so on Monday. If you are called to do so on Monday, okay?
I did see a few questions. I'm not sure if you... Are you still on, Ms. Summers? I'm trying to get the question that Kaylee asked. Ms. Summers, are you still?
Yes, I'm here, but because I'm no longer hosting, I accidentally turned off my mic and I couldn't put it back on. So I was trying to get your attention.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
No problem.
Were you able to?
Alright.
Okay.
Right? Yes, so
Yes, it's a question.
a question with relation to the headings. When doing a statistical report, start with the heading censored and then skip a line and write the report. No, it's the same principle for the report, and Ms. Tadio, you can clarify. It's similar to when you're writing the subject for the other reports. Does CXC stipulate that it should be at the center? Or is it enough to just have the subject? It can be at the margin or it could be center.
Yes, it can be both. It really doesn't matter once it's there.
Right, good. And even where you ask if you can write the number 20 or write out the words, either one would be acceptable, especially if they do bring this. And I'm saying it because they have not brought a statistical report in years. What I believe they would look for if they brought it is how you can express it. So they will not, I am not seeing a situation, and again, Mr. Adio can verify, I'm not seeing a situation where students will be penalized for using the figure 20 as opposed to writing out the word 20. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, Kaylee. Kaylee has a hand up. Oh, no, just thumbs up. It's just a thumbs up. All right. Right. And yes, we have another question from Andian.
Miss, so for the report, are we like also like the address of the standard degree or just the subject of the report?
So again, because we've not seen the statistical report in a long time, what applied before was just the heading. Now, if they do bring it, they may indicate to you if they want the report in a letter format. If they tell you that you're writing it as a letter, you're doing the report as a letter to, let's suppose you're doing a report based on let's suppose you are the manager of a company and you need to send a sales report to your employer, to the owner of the company. CXC could decide to give you the data and ask you to write the report to your boss, to the general manager, to the CEO, outlining the trends over the past month. If that is the instruction that you get, then you would need to write it in the letter format. And I anticipate that if they do bring it, they will indicate to you what format it should take. Okay, I hope that helps. Right. Any more questions? Any more? Any other questions? So students, I'm encouraging you to go out there and make all of us proud. We know that you are capable. We have been here with you for 2 weeks. 2 weeks in our Write Like a Boss series. This is our third annual Write Like a Boss series. And I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the Write Like a Boss team and committee of teachers to thank you all for being a part of this exercise, for joining us each night, coming on board and asking pertinent, relevant questions, for being engaged. This could not have happened if you did not sign in. We want to also thank the teachers of the other schools who have been inviting their students and sending the invitations out and joining us and being pulled in at the last minute, as Christoph John has been pulled in to assist, and we really appreciate all of you. We appreciate all of you. Remember to take the time this weekend and go over all that we have covered with you. Go over all that your teachers have covered with you. We've looked at summaries, and the summaries, there are lots of summary videos available on YouTube. They're very helpful ones. Go over them. You have done a lot of work with the expository. We looked at articles, emails, letters, memos, reports, inclusive of statistical reports. These are the expository areas indicated on the syllabus. We went through narrative writing. Practice your stories, and remember to include in your stories local literary devices, local descriptions, so that it adds that extra oomph and flavor to your story as you write for a Caribbean exam. We also shared with you persuasive writing. Go over the notes. Do some reading over the weekend. Look at the news. Be aware of things that are happening around you that you might be able to add to your persuasive essay. When you are finished with your paper 2, we will send information out as it relates to sessions to discuss paper 1. I will also add here, and we will confirm it. I was in a conversation with a mathematics teacher today who heard about what we were doing for English, and he is trying to get some math teachers together to see if they can give you a few sessions next week before your math exam on the 9th, so that if we can do Write Like a Boss for English, we're trying to see if you can get Math Like a Boss for mathematics. If we get this for you, we will send the link out when those teachers have organized it. And maybe next year, we would start early enough and the entire series will be Study Like a Boss, because we will get for you teachers for more subjects, and we have an extended study period, an extended study session to help you get ready to excel at your CSEC examinations. Once again, we thank you and we pray for your success. We pray for your success in every aspect of your exams as you continue to study. May the grace of Almighty God go before you all in your exam pursuits. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good evening and a successful study weekend leading up to a brilliant performance on your CSEC English A exam on Monday. Good evening.